Let me pull out an artist statement for you.
Well, this will be a little informal. I think we'll just start with this painting, Paul. Hello, I'm Arthur Secunda, and I'm here with my friend Paul Harmon, who's having a one-man show at the ArtSpace of the Roman Gallery here in Scottsdale. Paul, I'm particularly interested in this painting, which is called Rites and Melodies, because of the unusual juxtaposition of time and nude. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. First of all, it's because of you, Arthur, that I'm having this show. So I'm pleased to be in Scottsdale and with my old friend Arthur, who I've known on a couple of continents now. Rites and Melodies is good to start out with this painting, I think, because the title of the entire show carries the title Rites and Melodies. It's been my attempt through a number of paintings to show everything that encompasses being a human on the planet, which is rather impossible, but it's something I think that artists should try. At any rate, we have the time, we have the architecture, and then the woman represents the flesh and our capability of being human to love something outside of ourselves. So it's a painting that you start with high intentions, knowing that that you're doomed to failure. But I think the effort is worth the effort.
Aside from the subject matter, Paul, would you like to talk a little bit about this fascinating technique you have of the dotted lines or the incomplete lines that define all of the form?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because it is something that is common to all of my work in this show. This is a stencil line, and critics have often talked about it being a very contemporary look, but it's actually harks back many generations. The French have used the stencil in wallpaper for years and years now, and still do, except it's cut now with a laser instead of with a knife. The process is really very simple. From my sketchbooks, I make a drawing. I take that drawing and project it onto stencil paper, and then cut a stencil. Then I print that stencil onto the canvas. When you take the paper away, it carries all of these lines on a white surface. Then it's simply like a coloring book, and so you color in the lines. That's the simplest way to approach it.
Paul, excuse me for interrupting, but as
No,
far as
please do.
the composition, do you alter it as you're stenciling? Do you replace and reposition figures, or how do you arrive at your total composition?
In the original drawing, which will be generally fairly small, and but this would be a drawing in my sketchbook, this is a drawing in the sketchbook, this is another drawing in the sketchbook, and so long before I go to the canvas, I rearrange the different elements into one drawing. So I'm projecting one drawing onto the stencil paper to trace in charcoal to cut out. But your point is good.
You call it a montage then?
It is a montage.
Yeah.
And but your point is very good, because once you get that small drawing, project it up to a size like this and go to retrace it, it's necessary to make changes at that point. Also, once it's cut into a stencil, there are no more changes. And so,
where do the stencils derive? I mean, the changes derive from. I mean, how do you decide what changes need to be made? What works and what doesn't work?
It's strictly subjective. It's just looking at it and saying, this doesn't feel right. The rhythm is off on it, or the balance is off on it. A device that helps me on that, because your mind tends to memorize a drawing, and it wants to look right the longer you've looked at it. And so an old device that the old masters used was to get a mirror, and they'd have their drawing or their original sketch, and then they would look at it through the mirror, which would reverse it, and it's like looking at someone else's painting, and then you see that the balances are not right with the different elements.
Oh, that's
So,
terrific. Shall we move on to the next painting?
please.
Yeah. This painting fascinates me because it not only is a montage, but it seems to be chronological in time with all this romantic symbolism of before and after, almost like a peephole there at the right. Am I reading it correctly?
Yes, I think so. This was actually an assignment for a gallery. It said we want all of the artists in a particular gallery to do a painting on ritual, and it occurred to me that everything is ritual. Normally, an entertaining thing to me is when E.B. White was beginning to stop writing. He said, you know, what I would really like is to be like my dog. It goes down on the beach and it rolls in carrion, an old fish, and so on, and therefore enhances his personality and stature. He said, I wish that I were able to do that in my art, but I think that's, we are as human beings inclined to decorate ourselves. And so this is
and tell me about this beautifully clad Renaissance woman. Where does she come from?
Well, I wanted to show how we decorate ourselves for coronations or weddings or funerals and so on, and I wanted to have sort of a wretched excess to the costuming and so on. So I went to this era in history where costuming was perhaps more flagrant than it is today.
And Paul, I noticed, is she holding an arrow and the bird? What is the significance there?
She is posing as a huntress, and so she has the arrow and the bird, and it's interesting though that someone coming into my studio was saying, "Oh, I just love the painting. I think this is really beautiful, but what are you going to put over here?" So, but I do like I wanted this to be extremely busy, the excesses of ritual, and then I wanted this to contrast for drama, for just very simply. I had another image here that I wanted to put in there because it showed a man's arm coming up in the kiss, and you could see a wristwatch on his hand, which would clearly say in a New York second that this is very contemporary and this is old-fashioned. But I just like this drawing more. I hope that does have a contemporary look to it.
It's definitely 20th century. And the word, the writing on the bottom, ritual, is that unusual in your work, having actual letters defined?
I do that very seldom. Do that. The typeface, by the way, was designed by my friend Milton Glaser. So, and for such an old-timey image here, it was fun to get on the computer and work out the letter spacing and so on. So.
I noticed when you have your hand, could you put your hand up on the canvas again, a little higher, near her breast?
Yes.
Yeah, look at that hand and her hand. The lighting is so realistic on your painting that it's hard to tell your hand from the painting.
And the wristwatch.
And the wristwatch.
That's right.
Would you like to talk about these lovely girls from Montparnasse or Montmartre?
From Rue Mazarine. And this was... my back is to my first very small atelier in Paris. You go down the flight of stairs, just one flight to the street, and it's 33 Rue Mazarine. And these were some working girls on the street, and I just loved the